and get right into the discussion about the fares for Cascade Transit, and then move into our more regular agenda for the evening. The first thing that we're going to do is just to do some introductions, and then we'll go into the service story. And then if there is anybody else here tonight in person or online that wants to testify on anything on the rest of our agenda or any other topic besides the fares for CBT, because we're going to have a specific time to hear testimony about that on the agenda, we'll have you do that up front as well. So any comments that are unrelated to CBT fares right after the service story. But first, let's do introductions, and we'll have to start with you.
Kimberly Banner, Executive Coordinator. Parker, Program Assistant for the Fiscal and Admin.
Matt Ergel, still a relatively new board member here. Good to see everybody again.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
Go back.
Cheryl Halloran, City of Sisters Council.
Trina Lonenberg, City of Napoleon's Council, here for Christiane. They're always very excited about what she does.
Oh, good. Well, then you are always welcome to join her too if you want to come as a pair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stuart Goldie. I sit on the Regional Public Transit Committee.
Mike Riley, I'm a city councilor in Bend and chair of the board.
Tammy Bainey, Executive Director, and I do have someone that I wanted to introduce. When they get to them, I will just mention that as well.
John Nielsen, Vice Chair on the COIC Board and City Council from Redmond.
Seth Taylor, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Tony DeBone, Deschutes County Commission.
Mark Schindler, Brandon, City Council.
Christine McConnell here for Deschutes County seat for outdoor recreation and tourism.
Chris Piper, Deschutes County for business and industry. And I'll just say, it is cool to see so many people here and people I haven't seen for a long time. So it's great to reconnect with them. Welcome.
Bob Townsend, Cascades East Transit Director.
Brian Potwin, Chair of KTAC and Community Options Executive Director. David Beck, Counselor, City of Culver.
Obi Ariano, I'm the ODOT Regional Transit Coordinator.
Michelle Williams, COIC Deputy Director, Fiscal Manager.
Yay, Michelle's back.
Yeah.
We know who Tammy's favorite is.
She holds the money.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I'm Jennifer Luck, I'm the Community Services Director.
I'm also on the architect. Rick Matt, also at PTAC.
I'm Peyton Dunlap, Adult Education and Training Program Manager.
I'm Matt Olson, I'm a Mobile Employment Counselor with COIC.
Randall Suso, I am an adult training and employment counselor working out of the workforce Redmond location.
My name is Carrie Service. I am also an adult training and employment counselor working out of Bend.
Oh. And I'm gonna say more about Mickey here in a minute.
Oh.
So, do you, yeah, you go right ahead, yeah.
Service.
I'm Victor Shoemaker, I'm here as part of the service.
Excellent.
All right, Mickey Durdig, I'm new to COIC. I'm the Housing Programs Director.
And I'm gonna, when we get to the housing agenda item, I will say a little bit more. And
hi, everybody. I'm Keith Staley, and I'm working with Tammy and COIC on special projects.
yes, so for the board, as you might know, we went through the recruitment process for a director of the Community and Economic Development Department. And in that, we found Keith, who is newly in the area. Keith comes to us with over 40 years of local government experience, everything from being a principal planner to a planning director to an assistant city manager to a city manager. And so he is going to be a limited duration member of the team, helping us add capacity for some of the projects that we're working on, scoping those, reaching out to members, that sort of thing. And so thank you so much, Keith, for, this is day 4, so thank you for being here. And super excited to welcome him to the team as well.
We have a couple more folks just come in.
Hi, thank you. I'm Shelby Knight. I work in community development as the release leader. Megan Tuck, I also work in the community economic development department and I'm a program coordinator.
Okay. So first thing is the search story. Oh yeah, sorry, online. Thank you. Commissioner Hermrich, do you want to introduce yourself? Are you there?
She's no longer, she didn't join us.
Oh, that's right. Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kathy DeBone, and I'm with the Newberry Regional Partnership. I am currently the community coordinator. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, dear.
And how about,
Yeah, your husband's here. It's all good.
He hasn't had enough salad yet. We'll make sure.
yeah.
Oh.
No cookies.
I'll fix that.
And how about you, Jeff? How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, this is John Halen, a local entrepreneur and community organizer. Thanks for having me.
And Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Wolfslager. I'm the city manager in the city of Lapine and here representing Newberry Regional Partnership.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's everybody. So service.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. As I already said, my name is Carrie and I'm an employment counselor with COIC's Adult Training and Employment Team at WorkSource. And I have the pleasure of working on Dana Dunlap's team. It is my extreme pleasure to introduce Parker and Vic, two amazing human beings who came to WorkSource for some help. And they were both awarded scholarships with our program for qualifying applications. Parker was referred by COIC to COIC by another participant who worked with Ryan, my coworker, who's in the back there, also an employment counselor in the Redmond office. But because Parker lived in Bend, Ryan connected him with me to finish the process and help him through the journey in our program. Vic had a very similar situation, and he got the pleasure of working with Matt, who is another employment counselor who is in the back as well, on our team. So both Parker and Vic completed barber training at Fagan's and not only earned their barber's license in May, but they quickly went to work on plans for owning their own business and are now the proud co-owners of VIP Hair Lounge in downtown Bend. Even while they were deep in the process of starting that business, Parker made it a point to meet with me where he expressed his sincere gratitude for our help. And he told me that he and Vic wanted to pay it forward, generously offering to share free haircuts with other WorkSource clients who were needing to look sharp for interviews in their job search. It is such a privilege to work with our clients every day. And Parker and Vic's success is a beautiful example of our community's need and COIC's ability to help people on their journey forward. They are the kind of people who continue to make Central Oregon a place to grow and thrive in. They are here to share their experience with you. Parker and Vic.
I've never been behind the podium. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, my name's Victor, or Vic Shoemaker. I was introduced into the program through a fellow student while I was at Fagan's, right? We all became quick friends. We were able to talk openly with each other, When I started at Fagan's originally, I had just lost my job, like right before. I missed a sales metric. I was in a high impact sales role and lost my job a couple weeks before I had started school. So my initial plan was to just attend school part-time. Decided, maybe we just try and power through this. I was lucky enough to get some unemployment, through that process and everything. And so decided to go full-time and power through. After being in for a little while, money gets tight sometimes, especially when you have bills to pay, you've got a kid, and just everything else that comes with life, right? And so I was introduced to the program through the guy who worked with Ryan, through Chuck, and he said, go in and check it out. And that's how I met Matt. I just walked in. I think I walked in. That was Matt. Might have called him. I don't know. And we were able to start the process, right? Obviously, there's some regulatory, hoops that need to be jumped through, which makes sense, right? We can't just give away the funds to any Joe Schmo that walks in, So working through that, honestly, was pretty simple. Matt made it really easy, made sure to stay on top of it with me, just had to supply what was requested, and it happened. So, for me, the biggest part about getting the grant was, it relieved a lot of financial pressure, of trying to care, not just for like my life, but my kids as well. And to be able to actually complete the program instead of having to either step back, back to part-time or step back completely. It was just one of those things where, part of the money could go to the school to help with tuition and everything, and then I could take a little bit back to, to make sure that the lifestyle's, taken care of. So honestly, like, I don't know if I would be here today without it, to share the story, it's kind of one of those things where it was such a toss-up, whether or not to stay in school at certain times. And so once it was approved, I knew that it was going to be something that I could complete and be able to get through. And, as mentioned, we were able to get through everything, secure some private funding, from a personal friend that would, was really the catalyst, like part of the catalyst to help us, finance and open the shop, So now at this point, we're in full swing. It's not just us, we have others there too. Another barber that we met along the journey. We have 2 other stylists now. So, and we're able to kind of build and grow back. We were just talking to Neighborhood Impact. We're looking to do a thing with them to be able to go and give, either free or discounted haircuts to kids who are getting ready to go back to school. Which, as mentioned again, like, that's such a huge thing for us, is to get back to the community. I think I can speak for both of us when I say we were both raised, a certain way. And so it's a passion, not only of mine, but of Parker's as well, to be able to provide those services back to people who need it, Not everybody has a huge hand up in life. And so sometimes they just need a hand out. That's okay,
Yeah.
I'm Parker, pretty similar to Vic. I worked in logistics for about 10 years. COVID kind of started to slam that industry. I lost my job at the same time I was getting full custody of my daughter. So it was a toss up, like, all right, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I used to cut hair when I was younger, all my friends. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go to barber school. But at the same time, I decided to go restaurant industry and then kind of dipped, lost my job. So I'm like, man, all right, this has gotta work. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but we're gonna make it work. Same thing, had a guy in school, Chuck, who introduced me to Ryan. Ryan got me speedballing the first day. I think the day I called him, he was like, call me in 5 minutes. We spent about an hour on the phone, he got everything rolling. He handed me off to Carrie. From there, Carrie just zoomed me through everything. Like, anything I needed, she was there by phone or email to help out. We've continued conversations throughout. She always asked if there was anything I needed, any other ways. She introduced me to another program that was able to help with some things as well. So she's a huge reason why I was able to, not only financially, but mentally get to the program with being a full-time dad and a student. Once we decided that we were gonna open the shop, we were like, man, like, we only doing this because the community gave to us. So the core value of our business has to be given back to the community. So one of the big things we're working on, like you said, we're doing back to school programs. Like Kerry said, we've offered, if we can, you guys, anybody who needs to send people out waiting for free haircuts and stuff like that, we're trying to get back into the job community and things like that. That's just us. Like, we really didn't open a shop with like a huge financial like goal of like getting rich. Really, it's a place for us where we can run it the way we run it and give back to the same community that gave to us. So I just want to say to everybody that's a part of this program, thank you. Because without you guys doing this and voting on things like this, you wouldn't see this story for the both of us. So we really, really appreciate you guys and this program. So thank you. Oh, and we left cards.
There we go.
Website is awesome.
There you go.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, our next agenda item, is there anybody else here tonight who wants to provide any kind of public testimony on anything that is not related to CET fairs, Cascade East Transit fairs? Is there any other public comment? Anybody here in the room? Going once, going twice? Yes. Join us up here.
Oh, yeah, come on up. Okay, so next to David, yep. So Brett, yep, there you go.
And is there anybody online, Mr. Galen, do you have anything that you wanted to share with us tonight?
Just for general public comment, I would say, just thanking COIC yet again for, recording these meetings and putting them online. It's been incredibly helpful, and, thank you.
You're always welcome to join us for a meal too.
Yeah. Come on in person. Okay, I don't think we have anybody else in for any other kind of public comments. So we're gonna move on to CET fair guidelines, and I'm assuming people have read the packet. I think it's page 4 of the packet. It's got the fair schedule that's proposed for tonight. That's essentially what we're talking about. We already adopted the policy, broadly speaking, to implement fairs, and now we're attaching to that this fair schedule based on what we adopt tonight. Bob, do you want to give the presentation?
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen the logo in use.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, all right.
I haven't changed it yet.
Yeah.
We're still good. So I just wanna, we've been talking about fairs, for, the last 6 months or so here. It's, as Councilor Riley said, you've adopted the fair policy already. This will be a supplemental to this. So I just want to give a brief background. I'm not going to cover everything in the slides, but I want to have enough information so everybody knows what you're potentially agreeing to tonight. Next slide. So we're seeking approval of the fair guidelines document that's in your pamphlet. This is separate from the fair policy that's a mandate from the FTA, or required of every transit agency to have a fair policy on how you address fares. It doesn't necessarily have to have the fares itself in it. So this document you're approving will be a supplement to the fair policy. Our intent is the original fair policy never changes. This guidelines document will ebb and flow with time. So the fare document you see includes the fare tables, about what we're charging each route. It also includes the individual reduced fare program, which includes who gets individual fare reductions and what documentation we need from them to give it. It includes fare reduction, and then it has an extra section on deviation and fares when we won't be assessing fares. And so it's all of those things in one. Next slide. So just to outline, this is an excerpt from the fair policy that covers what we're required to do for solicitation and consideration of public comment, from posting it online to presenting it at meetings, or presenting at public or RPTAC meetings, presented at other city council, county commission meetings, and so on. And then just additional, informal survey information. So we followed all of these. Next slide. So just a high level, it went on the website just the week after our May 1st meeting where we approved the fair policy. It had the draft fair guidelines document. It has feedback instructions on there. Likewise, we put it on social media or Facebook. An Instagram account, we had pre-taken it to the RPTAC group in April to just get their support on that table. If you remember, we shared the table with the board just because we wanted somewhat a discussion before the fact, since it's a reintroduction instead of just a minor change. So we got that support, and Brian will talk about some of the other things. There are a broad list of public meetings. There were more than that even, but I tried to time. Those were meetings after May 1st when the fair policy was adopted. We did have a bunch of meetings before then, just saying these were draft documents for review too, but you can see pretty substantial outreach. We've done a lot of informal bus rider interviews. Especially through our Tri-Transit Week, we've been having morning coffee tables and things like that, just trying to get as much feedback as we can. And we've had, press coverage throughout Central Oregon about, or multiple stories on the fairs and other things related to transit. So feel pretty good that if someone wanted to provide a comment, they had an opportunity to do so. Certainly everyone riding the bus is, or everyone currently riding the bus now knows and has had an opportunity to provide feedback if they wish. Next slide. And then, so tonight, as Councilor Riley mentioned, the next part of that policy is a requirement of a public hearing. And this just has some notification requirements that we followed, and says the hearing shall be conducted. So we're going to meet all those requirements to the policy. Next slide. So I'm happy to discuss as much as everyone wants about the fair table. It's similar to the one you saw last time, with the exception that we moved the Ben Redmond Airport fare to $15. I have, this one didn't get updated, but I have an error in how it's children 5 and under can't ride or ride free. They can't ride by themselves. Anyhow, you understand the wording there. And then the rec route stuff, we've already approved at different time periods this year and going to last fall, but this will cement that as well as the new fares. Now, in the policy, if you remember, rec routes don't require the same public notice and things like that that our normal FTA routes do on top. And that's because, you know, if one of those is losing money, we have to change the policy instantaneously to ensure that we're at least breaking even. And then in the case of Bachelor actually determines the fares they want to charge. Our contract with them just says they have to pay us $450,000 or whatever at the end of the year to pay for all services. If they generate enough fares for it, then they generate enough fares. If not, and so those are on the bottom for that reason, because they're separate. And so I'm going to pause here. The next slides are just about the reduced fare programs. Any questions or comments on the fare table? For me.
So the question I've had before, and I'll reiterate it. I know that coming out of some of the negotiations I've got to go through, are we charging enough? I mean, I hate to be the bad guy in the room, but knowing that my county's gonna, 90% of my county will qualify for the reduced rates. Is this a fair price that we're charging for people for our services?
I would say it's more than fair. It is not enough to, you know, for long-term budget. And so you'll see in a second, but it is where I think we should be to start with. And, you know, we're proposing a 6-month review. And at that time, a couple of the examples are community connectors, $2 now. It was $3.75 in 2019 before the pandemic. So some of them, while the Ben fixed route is higher than it was, some aren't, but this allows us to administer it. It allows us to implement the transit pass program, and it allows us to have somewhat of a seamless reintroduction. But the point will be, after we assess ridership with some of the expansion efforts we've done and with some of the modifications to public outreach, you know, that we'll be back in April, May with some financial numbers saying, hey, yeah, we're fine for this year, but to be sustainable based on the transportation package and others, we probably need to draw this much on revenue, and we either draw that by increasing fares or increasing ridership and what's reasonable. And so I don't mean to talk around that. It is probably low, though, to your point, on a lot of them, to get to this 25% fare recovery that is generally a goal. But it is a really good starting point and allows us a jumping off point.
Absolutely. And I love the thought of easing into it. And I think this is a good route, just as long as they have a long-term strategy to make it, you know, closer.
But they jump on that. I know we had quite a conversation around the Redmond Airport fare. I think it was at $10.
Yeah.
And so that had a lot of discussion around it, to see where market rate and so forth against other transportation. And so the $15 is for that.
So Bob, you mentioned a couple things I want to ask for further clarification. You mentioned a 6-month review. You mentioned that this is not currently where it needs to be at as far as the budget goes to cover costs. And you mentioned the 25% cost recovery point being kind of that standard. So where are we at now as far as that percentage for cost recovery is? And it sounds like you've kind of already got that plan that probably 6 months from now, this will come back before us and potentially be looking at another increase and kind of a slow rollout. So that to Commissioner Taylor's point, it sounds like there is a plan, but kind of, can you share with us what that plan is?
Yeah, so, or just to go backwards in that, so our budget's approved, right, for the next year, and it's based on, you know, this amount in assessed fares minus, you know, just some reserve factors, because we don't really know how some of it may go on ridership. You assume about a 20% reduction in ridership, and that's more like, it's not like someone's not riding the bus, but instead of riding it 10 times a day, they may be a little more efficient and ride it less. There's a lot of that. Some users won't use it, but so we are fine for budget. There's no need to raise fares right now because of that budget for the next year. The next cycle, not knowing our federal funding, not knowing state funding, that's where we get to. As far as fare recovery, it's really hard because our system is so broad, but if you look at the bed fixed route, you know, a ride costs us between $7 and $15 per trip, depending on the time of the day and the route. So $2, you know, is not getting to 25% at all, you know, depending on the time. That's only a 10% fare recovery. And so, you know, will we ever get to that? And that's a, you know, that's a theoretical goal. Some of it depends on, well, you know, if the payroll tax was 0.5%, then the fare recovery number doesn't matter because we're already paying for that through our payroll. So why would we charge for, you know, there's that balance of what is our income related to fare reduction. I just use the 25% as a general, you know, goal so that we're only subsidizing, you know, 75%.
How does the 25% compare to, what's the average we see across the country in terms of fare recovery?
Yeah, I mean, it's very broad on the similar, right? You know, like TriMet is, you know, it was 15 to 20 at their peak before the pandemic. Now they're, you know, really less than 10 in a lot of places. But, you know, the other way to look at that is, especially in Oregon, we didn't have the payroll tax 4 years ago. So your recovery shouldn't be the same because we're subsidizing it more, right? And they have a district, so their rate should be different than ours, where we don't have a district, we don't have supplemental funding like Rogue Valley or Chariots and Salem or others. So our fare recovery probably needs to be a little higher. And some of the fare recovery it's misleading, it's twofold. It's a revenue thing, but it also controls abuse of the system that can cost us quite a bit of money on the dial or on demand services, right? It's not just about, some of our costs will go down implementing this, not just a revenue generator. Okay, next slide.
Do we have, you have more presentation?
Yeah, I have some of it, yeah. So again, we've talked about these before. These individual fare reductions generally mean, you know, the city of Bend, for example, has reduced rates for water, sewer, the transportation fee. These are in line with those. They're in line with TriMet, in line with other transit agencies. There's really kind of a national standard. Maybe people measure their low income different than we might. We're just using, we've actually matched the city of Bend language because it's easy. And then if they provide us a notice from the city of Bend, then we don't have to do our own analysis of a W-2 or whatever. But so pretty standard there. What is in your packet and may be of an issue, but at the same time, that's the standard information used industry-wide is about what you have to provide for information for to receive each of those. And again, to receive the reduction, you do have to supply an individual reduction. You do have to provide ID, right, and verification so that we can assume it. You don't get to come up to the bus and say, I'm over 65, I need a reduction. That's, you know, that's not equitable. That's not, it doesn't meet any Title VI requirements. And so there is information. Now, if you don't want the reduction, then we don't need to take any personal information as well. So both options are available. The other way to do it is down the group fare reductions. And we've talked to the Latin Community Association. There's a couple other people who want to have the same type of agreements where we'll sign an agreement with them. We'll provide them transit pass numbers and they'll issue them on their to their clientele. We won't take any information. We'll have the number though. If number 45002 creates an issue on the bus, we'll go to LCA and they'll have to help us manage that situation. And so there is a workaround to not providing identification and getting the reduction, but that some entity will have to sign an agreement with us to help minimize our risk. And so again, group fare reductions has the same qualifying language in the documentation. Yes.
On the fare reductions, you're talking about the proof that qualified, that's going into the app, is that correct?
No, so the proof is, we're not gonna keep any records or anything, we're just gonna do a one-time verification. So if Susie Smith is 65, has a photo ID that says birthday, 1960, we'll check it off. We're not taking a copy of that, it just says they get a reduced rate for, and we'll put in the reason behind the scenes, but we're not keeping documentation.
Okay, so drivers aren't having to check all of this?
No, it'll all be done behind the scenes or during signups, we'll be out and about. The intent is, if you want the reduction, you're gonna have to, a lot of people, just like they do now on our apps for our rep routes, they're just gonna pay full price on their app and not submit anything. It'll just be tied to their phone number. Next slide.
Really quick, what percentage, is there any idea of what percentage of the riders fit into any of these categories?
Yeah, so based on our 2019 surveys, because we don't keep this information now, we don't have fares, there's no reason to do an assessment. We're around 75% probably would have reduced fares. Now, the other science to introducing fares is that sometimes your ridership changes because you get more, I don't want to say preferred rider, but that's the discussion point in the industry. You get a different rider perspective, like especially with expansion, like I didn't ride before, we expanded, now I ride the bus to work in the morning because I'm not a, free or reduced qualifier. So there's going to be some dynamic changes. We think that number will go down.
Okay. And then on the group fare reductions, I guess what's the process there of identifying these groups and why wouldn't for-profit entities be included in it as well?
Yeah, and so there, again, this is open to almost anyone. There's another slide that gives me discretion to sign an agreement with any entity for reduced rates. Again, the point is about getting ridership, having some organization to it. These are the normal qualifiers from an FTA standpoint or the recommended ones. And so those are status quo. In the deviation of fares, it has this catch-all for me. Like if a business comes to me and says, hey, we want to sign this and want to do something that then we're gonna work something out.
Yeah, that's the employer category, that's private sector, public sector.
Yeah.
So, is this the individual fare reductions? Is this fixed route? Is this dial ride? Is this golf?
This one here, and if on the table, they're asterisk, which is probably not the best way to do it, but the way the table is now, the only routes getting reductions are then fixed route, rural, flex route. It's no dial ride reductions. You're not required by FTA guidelines to require, and so that's how the table is shown now. This would only be for those specific
And the
routes.
community connectors.
Or community connectors are the rural routes. Yeah.
So if we wanted to look at something like this for dial a ride, if we put a max number of rides, because I know part of the frustration with the dial a ride program is people are getting 3-4 trips a day, every day, because there's no disincentive for them to plan trips. But if we've got folks who are having mobility issues or who do need that service, do we have the capacity to build in some kind of metric that say, okay, they can get 10 rides a month or whatever that number would look like to meet the need, but would encourage them to be economical in making use of that service?
Yeah, so on the side right now, and not to preempt the board's decision, we could go to transit passes, or we would probably go to transit passes without fares, but we have a RFP out, we have a vendor selected, we've not signed the final contract, but we've been meeting with them about what are the nuances to the system for billing and things like that. And so to your point, we can you know, you can do caps like on this route, you could have it, hey, you get 2 free rides and then you pay $8 for the next 4 and then $20. I mean, you can do about anything in the system. So I wouldn't guarantee it, but I'm 99% confident that we can manage something like that. Especially the dial-a-ride system is billed through our customer service accounts, not through the app.
Especially in Bend, I would like to see some type of accommodation for the dial-a-ride folks, but while still trying to encourage them to use the fixed route whenever possible.
So I want to make sure that we're doing informational stuff now, so we have a chance to make sure we hear from the Public Transportation Advisory Committee and any public members before we truly get into deliberations as a board. I think your point's well taken. It's something I'm interested in talking more about. Is there any other informational questions for Bob?
I have two more informational slides here. So just the, oh, sorry, I copied it twice. One more slide. Right there. So this is the deviation in fares. I just want to be transparent. I don't think anybody will have a problem with it, but you know, on special event days, if systems outage, we're not going to charge fares, right? There's a bunch of these nuances. Again, I've added this other group of partner discounts that include a signed agreement things, but I just want to be transparent that we still want to do promotional activities where we have a week or a day here or there where it's free and things like that. And then the last slide. Or, sorry, I have 2 more slides. This is just a spectrum of, you know, we got a lot of feedback, but nothing like an official, you know, it was conversations, we'd be at meetings, and so you can see it ranges everywhere from it's going to be an inconvenience to we should have been charging fares to a long time ago. I think the bottom one is of importance here that we actually discussed it today at our PTAC and have a work around with one of the entities that does transportation reimbursement for individuals. So, you know, it's been helpful on a couple of those things that we certainly want to address when we go to implementation. But generally, there's an understanding that we should be having fares. And then I hope this is my last slide. Okay. In your packet, because we presented the stuff, you know, 3-4 weeks ahead with the memo, I said effective November 1st. We could get to fares November 1st if we wanted to, based on the process we're using right now. In the last few weeks, we've made some decisions about our transit provider in Bend. We haven't had full service in Bend through the contractor for, I think, 3 weeks straight. Again, today, 2 routes we weren't able to run because of their inefficiencies. And so we've started the process where we're gonna not extend their contract and terminate it at a point here and take over the service ourselves. I don't want to start charging fares and have this issue like, hey, we had to cancel routes. I'm barely, you know, I'm certain by January 1st, when we have a majority of the routes ourselves, that we'll be able to maintain service. And so, yeah, could we move it to November 15th or something, but then during the holidays. So you can, you know, my change from the packet would be just to, you can still do 60 days notice, but I just want to give a heads up to everyone that it's probably January 1st. This implementation would include the full transit pass system, the app, and then going to fares. And then I just want to highlight this 6-month review just for the reasons Commissioner Taylor brought up and others, right? Is we want to talk about these various routes. We want to have some data. We do want to get to a different number. We'll have, by that time, we'll know what the legislative action was at a state level. We'll have a better understanding of the federal funding and if there's continued delays with transit funds. And then certainly some of the other ones will be, you know, we'll have ridership numbers. We'll be like, hey, we should adjust the daily cap system. We're seeing, you know, this benefit here or there. So I just want to highlight that we'll be back. This isn't a forever document. And that's it.
Okay. Does anybody else have informational questions for Bob? Before we hear from Jack. Okay. I think you're up.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Brian Popwin. I don't have any slides, but I am the chair of our PTAC and also the executive director of Community Options. Our PTAC is made up of a diverse group of community members who are really passionate about transit. We meet very frequently and have lots of conversations, discussions about how to improve transit service and serve the community better. We got some of our members here this evening that also made the trip out. We got to ride one of the newer buses. I think it only had like 1,400 miles on it. Still smelled like a new car as we rode out here today. So that was absolutely fantastic.
They did violate the no open container rule.
Yeah, do it.
I told you so I could get a picture and show you on the.
Oh, is that why? Set up.
Don't do this.
So we met earlier today to discuss different comments that we wanted to provide to all of you about the fairs, but also in general as well. So that's my role here today. So overall, we're very pleased with the direction that CET is going, especially with the increased service hours, providing more service in our community. So concerning the draft guidelines, there is consensus within the committee that we approve of this move forward. We've also engaged with the developmental disability community, which has also expressed support too. We're hopeful that the introduction of fares will not lead to more than a 15% decrease in ridership, and it will also help reduce misuse of the system, including folks that have been excluded due to dangerous behaviors riding the system, and in particular, misuse of services like data riding as well, which Bob actually mentioned just a couple of moments ago. Some other further recommendations that we had is we'd love to see CET develop a framework for sustainable funding. This could include exploring options of increasing payroll and also focusing on encouraging more local support. Overall, we want to see CET be able to increase frequency and specifically convenience for the community to increase ridership. That comes up so often in our meetings with lots of different opinions about how it can happen. But the framework for how we actually get there is not really on the table that we've seen so far. We'd also like to see CET develop some guidelines for assessing the existing services and routes that we have currently. So we can look at, what's going well, what could be improved, what needs to be changed. So looking at where routes could be moved, what new routes could actually occur, and even potentially focusing on more on-demand services. I know that the committee specifically is also a big fan, I guess maybe I'm speaking more for myself, of this new bus for the airport. That's a huge thing for just Central Oregon as a whole. So we thank you for that if you're moving forward with it. And also we did talk a little bit about the recreational routes too. Just really making sure that CET has the ability to make sure that it's sustainable moving forward. We know it's a big moneymaker as far as the overall budget with this, but we want to make sure that it's balanced within what CET is providing and the services that they're rendering it to. So that's overall what we've discussed. Like I said, sometimes we get a little passionate about it, but it's all because we really love what CET does and what it provides.
Anybody have questions for Brian or other members of the PTAC that are here, from Fox here, Tracy here?
So just a point of clarity for those recreational routes, I don't know the policy, the policy is not just to go make a bunch of money. We try to dial in the cost of doing business and then making sure we're not losing money. So, but I mean, does that come up? What's kind of the specific?
Yeah, I think that, in the past, we've talked about, these need to cover their costs. There's FTA guidelines on what funding you can use. There is some nuance to it. In Utah, they provide rec routes with federal dollars too. Their situation's a little different, but we've been trying to break even. Now, what we've assessed on breaking even, driver time, gas time, things like that have been there. Maybe our overhead administrative costs haven't been what they were supposed to be. That's changed this year. And now our new agreement with Bachelor is also going to have, or also has depreciation of vehicles so that, they'll pay $1 a mile. I can't remember what we agree on. So in 4 years, we'll be able to buy new buses. Now, the next discussion point is, do we, want to put a 10% buffer on there for grant matching, other things, right? And similar with Ride the River, Lava View. Our transit to trails is grant funded now, and it's it's probably never gonna be sustainable funding itself just with the ridership and the cost to run, you know, a 50-mile loop. But I think those are the discussion points. Certainly happy to engage with our PTAC on it, but, you know, the board will need to weigh in on what, you know, what the role is. Similar to the airport discussion, is it just to break even, or is it to make some additional money to pay for services in other areas?
But I guess that's my thought, you know, if my perception at the board is, you know, we're probably still not charging enough, and just like you said, the cost recovery, the vehicle recovery, all that kind of stuff, overhead administration. So, you know, I'm just thinking through the fact that you mentioned it's a big money maker. It's like, well, it makes money. It covers its costs.
I guess that's
Yeah.
more of the comment as
Yeah.
far as where that's actually concerned.
Yep, yep. But thank you for those comments.
We're thankful to be able to come and speak to you.
Mhm.
We talk about you a lot.
Does anybody else have any questions for Peter?
I guess just to clarify, is it cost neutral right now, or is it budgeted to lose money? And it might be in the,
No,
might be in here,
for Bachelor in particular,
the whole system.
our budget's budget neutral to provide everything, right? Yeah, we're not losing money the next year based on grants and other revenue.
Yeah, and so then there are these different transit components that might be losing money on one side, but we're account for.
Yeah, I mean, losing money is, you know, relative in the fact that, you know, we're subsidized, so it's making up the difference, and we, you know, we don't lose money from budget year to budget year, but some routes pay for themselves and some don't.
Yeah.
And some or potentially we could be recovering more than what the average ride costs us, potentially on the rec route or the route to the airport. Or
Yeah, I mean, there's
kind of
certainly
alternatives.
a broader discussion
Yeah, the basic.
about what our role is in transportation improvements in Central Oregon and changing behavior by, you know, promoting bus service and, you know, parking combinations and things like that, yeah.
Well, I appreciate PTAC folks coming. And for your thoughtful input. So I'm going to open a public hearing in case there's anybody that wants to provide comment to the board that's not part of PTAC. As far as I know, there's nobody in the room that came tonight to provide any kind of feedback or input for us on affairs.
Oh, no, I was just.
And then yeah, is there anybody else online, Kimberly?
Just the people that were here earlier and nobody's raising their hand.
Mr. Halen, we don't have any input from you on this question.
Yes, I'd like to make public comment.
Okay, you got 2 minutes.
Cool. This, CET, as many of you know, was started around 2010 when the city of Bend was facing a budget shortfall of about $1.7 million. And as a result, they decided to expand it and have it be taken over by COIC and have a partnership with that. And they were going to have it be a trial run to see how it went. I think we can all see from the fact that people are not going to be able to use paper money to ride the bus that a lot of the people that CET services don't have bank accounts or credit cards. And I understand that people can just say they don't have it and ride for free, which is great, but I don't understand why we're implementing a fare system when we don't have ways to take all forms of payment. Seems very un-American. I would also say that I'm not entirely sure why we're adding more routes. You can always judge how good a public transit system is. I think the old adage is when the rich ride the bus system, and from what I see online, the rich hate the bus system. And there's constant complaints about buses going through Northwest Crossing and other neighborhoods. I think the goal of CET should be increasing frequency instead of routes. I think we need to have a bus every 15 minutes for it to be a success. I don't know why we're not pushing for that. And if the current version of CET continues to operate like it does, I really think it's time for us to have a transit district where we can actually have higher frequency and more control over our local bus system. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Brian that joined, I don't know.
Oh. Brian Murphy, we just saw that you joined. Did you want to make a comment tonight about the fares for Cascades East Transit?
No, I'm on the agenda for the Heart of Oregon Core
Oh.
questions coming up, so I'll stay put until you're ready for me.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, nobody else, as far as I know, that wants to make public comments. We're going to close the hearing. And then put it open for further discussion from the board and then a vote on how we want to proceed. I think the one thing that's on the table so far is talking about perhaps offering a discount for Dial-A-Ride. I think if I understood it correctly, the same kind of criteria or program for the discount as is already outlined for Bend. And the reason Bend specifically is because Bend sort of has a different set of circumstances. Because it has a fixed route system, it has some alternatives to help you get around. Looking at capping that at something like 8 or 10 discounted trips a month, and then otherwise you'd be paying the full fare of $4.
Because they would still receive a discount, fixed rate, on the fixed routes, 100% of the time. But I do think giving them some flexibility as needed for things would be beneficial in that situation. None of us find that we should try to provide some kind of benefit.
Yeah, Tammy has a question about what you're proposing specifically.
So Bob, do we know what percentage of Dial-A-Ride is actually, they don't pay because we have providers that pay for them, like Pacific Source, not Emergent Medical?
Yeah, we don't have a percentage
Okay.
number, but just like today, the one entity we were working with provides 100, for their 100 individuals all get full transportation reimbursement.
Okay.
And so, it's tough to say what the number is.
Okay.
We don't collect that info.
Okay.
I mean, I think I share the concern that I think Mr. Nielsen is raising around, one, just a dramatic increase in the fare for these folks. And that while I think that there are people, it sounds like, that misuse the system, that are, scheduling way too many trips, they could be a lot more efficient and it costs the system a lot. I also think there are probably people who really need the support and have legitimate trips that are important for them in terms of a disability that they may have and or just as a senior getting to medical care or whatever it might be. So kind of having an in-between step here where some people are offered a limited number of discounted trips per month and then they're at full fare. So there is still an incentive for them to be a little bit more careful and thoughtful about how they're planning their trips, but we're not asking them to make a big leap. And I'm really thinking about, again, disabled people and seniors that are on really fixed incomes and how this might impact them. So I would support implementing something like this in Bend.
So I raised a question on that. I was saying, John, I bring that forward. But I want to ask Bob what the resource lift would be to revisit this and adjust internally to manage this at this time. But maybe what we do is we take this into consideration, monitor the program, and then maybe build it into, your 6-month review or whatever it's going to be to look at that adjustment in some form of compromise rather than immediately addressing it, making revisions now. Because I think there's some things internally from a resource and administrative piece.
Yeah, so resourcing wise, what we've done now is, again, and this is a secondary vendor, or we have a vendor for Dial-A-Ride services that helps us through our call center where we schedule the call, or we schedule the routes that has all their information in it, things like that. We're supplementing that with an amendment to that contract to include the payment system for it. And so right now, the costs we have are for a fixed cost, hey, it's $4 every ride, it checks $4. I'm not sure of the resource work it will take to just be like, hey, 10. I'm thinking it's feasible it's a database structure, right? But that's not what we have costs for right now. But either way, I'm happy to explore that too. It is, theoretically, it's manageable. We have the cap system on the fixed route. That's a different vendor. you know, who manages fixed route systems, but I'm assuming it's feasible.
I mean, from the discussion that we had, it sounded like many of these systems that vendors like this
Yeah.
are used to having a variety of different criteria,
Yeah.
and so they built that into the
Yeah,
systems that they.
I mean, it's definitely gonna be feasible, I know that, what I don't know is the cost point for that compared to what we have the estimates for now, you know, that would require some rework.
What's a comparable, we're charging $4 a ride, what's a comparable to other services?
Yeah, so, yeah, we, if you have the presentation, Kimberly, the charts at the end of it. But for, fixed routes, Rogue Valley is $4, their comparable size, Salem is $3.20, TriMet is $2.80. You know, their dial ride is, you know, they have it by segments and areas, and you're not going from, you know, Troutdale to Beaverton, right? It's within your area, otherwise you have to take the rail. Yeah, this slide, and then Lane County is $3.50, and again, all, you know, we're all a little bit more than some, but right in the range, but again, we're the only one out of those 5 that doesn't have supplemental funding through either tax district, supplemental payroll, or things like that, so that's how we generally got to the $4 recommendation.
And do any of those comparables provide a discount on dial rides?
TriMet has discounts for dial ride, they have less, our list of discounts is bigger than theirs, they have 4, you know, we have like 8.
So, Chris, I take your point, but one of the things that I would be cautious about is bumping the rate up and then bumping it back down later on. I would rather look at it now, see what the implications are, and then if we need to adjust later.
Yeah.
Especially if we're gonna have to look at an overall rate increase across the spectrum for the next year. I think, I would think that if we can keep it as a subsidy now, or that kind of capped fee start to incentivize the behavior that we want from the ridership, then we can look at, okay, if we need to make an adjustment across the board later on, it will be less impactful.
So let me, I just want to clarify that I'm hearing this right. You guys are advocating for the reduced rates for dial ride as well, correct? Is that what you're?
For up to say 8 or 10 rides per month.
Yeah.
So if somebody
Just
does
a
20
reduced-
rides, they get the first date at the $2 instead of 4.
Yeah.
And the remainder of it.
The $4.
Individually though, it's
Right.
But then
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was on the same.
Yeah, not everything, not across the whole board, right? Because that's not gonna, that's removes the incentive for people that are not.
I guess the groups that we're trying to identify here, individuals, aren't they already getting a reduced rate if they qualify for one of the areas that has been identified? So are
Not on
we,
the dial ride service, and that's the distinction. They would on the fixed route, and they would continue to get it on the fixed route, but if we can, and if we want them to group, you know, to use the fixed route or to group their dial ride needs together so that they're not kind of becoming an overburden on the system. And so this is more kind of trying to train the behavior of the rider while still giving them kind of the benefits that they need and that discount to support.
yeah, I guess my question, there is a group of low income or people with disabilities that qualify for a reduced rate. Does that not apply to dial ride?
Correct.
Correct.
Doesn't unless you make.
Fixed rural, yeah, less.
That's the change that I'm advocating for, is the change that you're talking about, just giving those people that advantage at least for a portion of their trips.
Thank you. I qualified this. I said I was a new board member.
Yeah.
I think I just got closer to the finish line.
And dial ride is a on-demand, they come to your door and take you to the door, right? Versus having to go to a bus stop. But the point is that some of these people are either, you know, severe income restrictions and or they have a disability that makes it very difficult for them to use.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should assume every dial ride user, and I don't think anybody's suggesting that is misusing the system, right? But I don't want to punish the people who aren't misusing it, but we want to make sure we're not creating a, you know, this, removing that incentive to stop this.
Thank you for the additional time on this one.
So I mean, that's the one thing we've heard so far that would be changing the proposal that's on the table. Does anyone else have anything that they wanted to bring up around changing the proposal on the table at this point?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts on this, regarding the qualification groups or individuals. We have disabled veterans. I would propose all veterans plus active military or some combination of that, to be included. And if we're concerned about, I know we're trying to balance cost recovery versus ridership, perhaps we raise the person's age 60 or older to 62 to offset that, which I noticed on that one table, some of the other areas have it at 62. That would be my suggestion.
Do you have any, is there anything about that that's not doable for some reason? Or is it
No, I mean, it's just
federal
that,
guidelines?
for military ID is usable for that. The disabled veterans have other transportation services that are fully subsidized, so, they can have routes between communities in a on-demand type of service that other people don't qualify for, so, there's no reason to not have it, but that's just another piece of information.
Are you talking about the veterans healthcare transportation services for medical appointments or?
Yeah, and then we also have a supplemental grant for veteran service rights.
So the first part was active duty, what was the second part, Cheryl?
Just all veterans, not limited to disabled veterans, just to acknowledge their service.
I'd agree with that. And part of it's PR too, right? Like the goal is to increase ridership, showing what we're doing for some of these communities, right? And specifically to, Helen, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Councilor Heller's comments, doing it for just veterans as a blanket, I think says a lot about CET and COIC and what we're doing, and would hopefully encourage and increase that, right? It's all public service.
Yeah, no, and again, on these, yeah, it's $100 here or there, but it's more about the ridership, the perception. Some of these, like I said, we copied what other transit agencies have in the state. We copied the city of Ben's, reduced rates, which has the disabled veterans monitor too, but we can have whatever we want. It's easy to build that into the system.
As a veteran and a disabled veteran, thank you, but now I have conflicts.
Are you recusing yourself?
I see council on that.
I got you.
No, love it.
So do I see general head nods around the, all veterans plus active duty?
Yes.
Anything that we can do to be better than the city of Bend.
I'll keep working on it. We do have a small stuff.
Recommended raising to 62.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking. I thought it was something.
Only if there's concern about the cost recovery by opening it up to all veterans and active duty, that perhaps we offset that by looking at that age 60 and older, which boy seems pretty young to me.
That sounds young to me.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed again, comparing it to some of the other areas, that the 62, Medicare is 65. I don't know how much of a difference it would make, but just throwing that out there as an offset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm decent at math, but 60 is a lot easier to add for staff looking at it.
It's one of those signs, like the story right out.
Every day we'll have to get the new sign.
Yeah, you do.
You were born on this day.
I'm happy, one of the things we can do certainly is, go down the list in 6 months, we'll have more information, because we'll have, we won't know the name of the person, but their card will be identified with the 64-year-old person, how many times they rode the bus. So we will have data to show what that change could be. My preference would just from the way we're gonna sign up people, and we're gonna, take my laptop to different entities and do it, is that the 60 is easy for us right now.
Are you okay with that? Sure.
I had a question about what the gentleman said online about if you don't have a digital account, or if you only have cash, so is there going to be, I don't know if this is a policy change or anything, what's included in this paperwork, but I didn't see it mentioned in there, but will there be that option for someone to pay by cash?
Yeah, so the key point here is the fares and, what we're looking for is the table and the format. Some of the implementation stuff, we're gonna have standard operating procedures. We would like to get away from cash on every bus. And so, some of the costs we have now in anticipation of this and looking forward are, we have a lease price for vending machines that we can put in certain places where you put your dollar in and then it activates your card or activates your phone account, however you want. We've looked at partnering with, different vendors, Safeway, 7-Eleven, where you can just get our card in there for cash. A lot of those different types of things, because certainly there's some Title VI requirements, there's some other legalities around accepting cash. But if we take cash as a whole, like I'm showing for the first year, just as an example, that our cost to implement fares is around 250 or 300,000 the first year for a lot of stuff. That cost goes way up if we're only taking cash because we have double counting procedures, we have additional staff time, and so we're trying to get away from that. But what I anticipate at first is we will take cash in remote areas. We won't take cash at Hawthorne Station, for example, because you can go inside and supplement a card and things like that. That way, their fare box doesn't need to be changed out every day. It can be changed once a week. We'll have 6 or 8 of these machines throughout Central Oregon, Warm Springs, Redmond, Bend. And so, and then we'll probably have a policy as well saying, hey, in unique circumstances, if you're picking up somewhere at Brookswood late at night and someone doesn't have a phone, doesn't have a transit pass, and only has cash, we'll probably accept it, or we'll probably just let them be free because it'll cost me more to count for $2.
And some people who may have cash problems are also gonna work with some kind of a nonprofit and may be able to access some of the.
Correct, yeah, the other way,
that way, right?
the other way to do it is, we'll have these programs where, Bethlehem Inn or something has paper coded tickets that are one-time use, right? And that they can give out and they'll be numbered again so that if there's an issue with the rider, we'll know where to go back to. But yeah, as much as we could get away from the cash system, it just creates a lot of problems. But that'll be in the policy adjustment. Like I said, we'll probably accept cash to start with and then weed off of it again, because we do have the fare boxes on the bus already.
Thank you.
Do those conversion when they take the cash in to get the card, is there a fee?
There's a fee, but we pay for it all behind the scenes. So whether it's 7.5% fee, 9% fee on certain types, that's behind the system. So if they're paying $2, maybe we're only recovering $1.80 because we're, paying that fee behind the scene. But still, that's cheaper than the counting it and dealing with some other situations.
So,
Oh, sorry.
pardon me.
I yield the floor.
I envision a premier transportation option here. People that are excited to get on the bus, the fixed route systems, the community connectors, cup of coffee, a briefcase in your hand. That's a stereotypical statement, but just whatever, somebody really enjoying to get on the bus and getting around and utilizing the bus. So I'm sitting here and thinking, I wouldn't go down trying to, negotiate a little here, a little there, which has been done just now. I'm not gonna be against it, but, let's just put a set of numbers in place. Let's get people riding the bus and enjoying the bus and being proud of the bus. So, yeah, I'm just, I would propose these things, but I'm not gonna be against it.
Yeah, I kind of was actually going to speak to that exactly. I want to get back to what John brought up and the fact that, one, I don't think we have enough data to really move to that decision at this point. I don't know if we know the percentage of riders that are subsidized to help cover some of those costs. I think we've got a great fare schedule that we've been spending a lot of time on, and I think we've got some some things that are set for us to come back and revisit it in 6 months and see how things are going. And I think maybe at that time it would be helpful to know what percentage of riders are subsidized in the dollar ride situation, to make sure that we are accommodating where we need to and to meet them where they're at. But I think at this point in time, I would like to move forward with.
But if we don't have any subsidy for that, how will they calibrate how many?
Yeah, I think that, and that's what I'm saying. I just think there's still a lot of unknowns to go ahead and hold this up to make this decision without the data.
But what I'm saying is we won't be able to collect the data if we're not actively. And if we're not seeking to collect it, we won't collect it. If we don't put that metric in place, there's no mechanism to collect the data of who would be acceptable, who would be allowable in that system. And I know $4 may not be a lot for anybody in this room, but that can be, it adds up over time. So I think.
No, I totally hear that. I totally hear that.
Behavior, I think it's worth the conversation.
I mean, given the affordability issues that we hear about regularly in the city event, I think it's important for us to be paying attention to what I would consider some of the most vulnerable people in the community, seniors on really limited incomes, and people with disabilities that truly are not misusing the system, but they have real needs. And it may be that they're overusing it, and they can consolidate. So I think starting off by giving people a limited number of discounted trips, it's not gonna happen. I wouldn't imagine it's gonna have a huge impact on the budget as a whole. We can certainly look at it in 6 months after implementing it and make some kind of change if it really is having a big impact. But
I didn't think.
we're asking a really big shift for people.
Yeah, I hear
Where we
everything
are right
that
now.
everybody's saying. I'm just, we've done some modeling, we've looked at other markets, we've brought that to fruition. I think we've come to a place where there's a medium price point that seems to be suitable for what we're trying to achieve here. I mean, this is kind of new ground in making these changes. But, these other markets are having costs that are a little bit more than what we're charging currently. Yeah, I understand the affordability, but I think we can reverse this as well, just as we can change it up at the beginning, but revisit it in 6 months.
So, is there anybody else that has anything that's not been talked about and you wanted to talk about relative to the fair? I don't think there's any other proposals for changes. I think we've got 2 on the table right now. One is the one we're just talking about for the dollar ride and then, and the other is putting all vets and active duty service members able to access the discount. And I think I see, can I just see a raise of hands of who's comfortable with the one with the for all vets and active duty? So I see all board members raising their hands. Mr. DeBone, are you raising your hand?
Well, I already said I'll vote for it, but that's not my thing. I wouldn't.
Okay. But you're not opposing it? Yeah.
I'm trying to hold on here.
Okay.
And you get to vote too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, very good, okay.
So then I think maybe what we should do is have a vote on the piece around the dial ride. So what's on the table is to modify the proposal so that Ben dial-a-ride, that the same criteria for reductions in fares apply to Ben dial-a-ride, but setting a cap of no more than 10 reduced fare trips per month.
Could I just clarify the verbiage, since everyone on Ben dial-a-ride, because it's a paratransit service, will already qualify under reductions. Our verbiage would be, you get 10 trips at $2 a month, and then anything after that's $4 versus this reduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So just modifying the fare.
Yeah.
First 10 trips, $2. Anything from 11 on is $4.
Correct.
So.
And there's a dial-a-ride in Redmond as well, correct? So
Yes.
Any reason why we're just looking at Ben?
There isn't a fixed route of similar quality in that. So there's really an alternative.
For Redmond dial-a-ride is open to all users, whereas
Okay.
Ben dial-a-ride is a paratransit qualifier, and so
Okay.
if we put that same language on Redmond dial-a-ride, right now, Redmond dial-a-ride is the most abused system or service we provide because, we're taking kids to school who have other needs, we're taking people anywhere because it's free to everyone. And so that would really have a budgetary impact on that one, where in Ben, it will have some budgetary impact, but it still disincentivizes dial-a-ride over Ben fixed route, which is the intent.
So I'd like to just, who's in favor of the proposal that Mr. Newsom? So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Oh, even Mr. Commissioner Butler, 7, 8. So it looks like we have everybody in support of that. Okay. All right. So I think we should just do a final vote to make sure we're on the record. We've modified the proposal tonight to include discounts for all veterans and active duty service members. We've also modified to say that Dial-A-Ride in Bend is eligible for a reduced fare of $2 for first 10 rides, and after that is $4. So can I see a vote as everybody, of the people who support that fare schedule?
So, no kidding, do I have a conflict or I'm okay?
You're fine, thank you for stating it. You're
Okay,
not.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have support from everybody around the table for that. Great. Good. So I think that's, is there anything else we need to talk about?
Oh, I always have stuff.
Well, I know, for tonight.
Oh, I think they're saying, they're gonna depart here back on the bus, yeah. Appreciate it.
Bob, you'll be staying in case there's other CET business, in case anyone needs to go from the architect.
Yeah, architect
Okay,
can go
very
all
good.
city,
All
yeah.
right, okay.
And then thanks again to all the feedback members.
Yeah, thank you.
We need a motion, like a
Support.
motion or what?
Thank you for having us.
Because, yeah, that. So,
Oh, okay, so I guess we need to do a formal motion, so we voted on before. Did you move it, Chris?
Yeah, well, I was about to, and then.
Okay,
thank you.
so you made the motion, who made the second?
So,
I second.
Yes.
Mr. Nielsen seconded it, everybody votes.
Or you take your say.
did we, so Christine just brought up a point, moving forward, and I don't know, if I run this by Bob, but no later than January 1st, November 1st.
Good point. Yeah, I think the assumption was based on the presentation tonight of January 1st.
Correct.
So the motion just should say effective no later than January 1st.
Sure.
And if we could keep that,
Is that in the packet somewhere?
it is in the packet. And if we could
It's on
keep
the
that-
second page.
If we could keep based on system readiness, I mean, I want to give it to you, but it's something,
Or like the app or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Mike, it's on the second page.
Yep.
All right.
So, let's just do a real quick, I need a motion to, amend what we just passed and, to change it to effective January 1st, 2026. And did you want something in
Wants to keep the language about based on system readiness. Keep the language in there. So baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike is just.
Or 60 days following public notice based on system readiness. Okay. So moved by Dave, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hallelujah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
Okay, so the next agenda item.
I remember. Oh. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure back here.
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
You're on a hot seat.
Yeah.
You said that you would get the tattoo of the logo.
Oh. You have a tattoo of the logo somewhere?
You know, what's funny though is, someone ordered some temp tattoos and they'll be here for next week.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going permanent yet.
Okay.
Doesn't have your face on.
That'll be a good social media post.
You gotta put them on different spots on them so they know where to get through.
Yeah.
Got a gal on my staff who does tattoos.
I'll bring her to the next meeting.
So, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda as submitted.
Second by Mr. Piper. All those in favor of passing it? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Sorry.
So the next item is the Community Renewable Energy Program Grant Application Request.
Yeah, great to be here. So Shelby Knight, I'm the resilience planner within the Community and Economic Development Department within COIC. And I'm joined here today by Clayton Crowhurst from Northwest Housing Alternatives. And then online, we have our friend Brian Murphy from Red Point Construction Management, who's working with our boarding board. We're here today to request board approval for COIC to serve as the lead applicant and fiscal sponsor for 2 separate grant applications to the Oregon Department of Energy's Community Renewable Energy Program, also known as CREP. We're partnering with Northwest Housing Alternatives and Hard Boarding Board on separate applications to These projects both emerge from work that we're doing with communities in supporting energy resilience planning, as well as the community resource development programs, where we provide resource development and technical assistance to our member jurisdictions, specifically related to housing. Both projects will support construction of resilient alternative energy infrastructure, offsetting energy costs, and providing critical backup power for essential community services and operations. I'm going to hand it over to Clayton just to give a really brief overview of his project, and then I will speak to the hardware or application proposal.
Thanks, Shelby. Good evening, y'all. Good to see a couple of familiar faces here. I'm Clayton Crowers, Northwest Housing Alternatives. I'm a housing developer and work in Central and Eastern Oregon on affordable housing developments. And our current project that I am almost ready to sink my teeth into on the construction side is in Sisters, Trinity Place. It's gonna be 40 units of workforce affordable housing. We're really trying to target kind of working and middle income families, which is a very, very hard demographic to get funding and housing built for. And seeing this opportunity to partner with COIC and apply for the CREP grant as the ability to get renewable energy in the form of solar, and then also backup power for community and resiliency spaces within our building, so that in wildfire event, power loss, winter storms, we can have spaces within the building that residents can congregate in, but then also the larger neighborhood. In town, we're actually lucky enough to be surrounded by a nice, quiet neighborhood with a lot of seniors. Whenever I drive through, I don't see a lot of generators next to people's houses. So not only will our residents benefit from this, the property will benefit from having more renewables, lower power bill, but also as a service to that larger neighborhood. And yeah, open to field any questions on affordable housing or the technical details of our project.
What's the cost associated with this?
So right now we're probably gonna be applying somewhere in the 500,000 range, and that would encompass a 30 to 50 kilowatt array, as well as 200 to 240 kilowatt hours of battery storage. So looking to target, depending on how much the sun is shining, 2 to 3 days of backup power for our spaces within the building. Still getting in kind of final bids and contractor selection, but about that, I think the grant max is $1 million. So we're gonna be somewhere in that mid-range with that. And it's gonna be integrated into this larger development effort around the project as a whole.
And is that not backup for the HVAC systems as well?
Yeah, so we would have HVAC, lights, plug loads, refrigerator. One of the things that, as we've looked at this for other properties, both, medicine storage for folks that need to keep meds in a refrigerator, as well as medical devices. Those are two really important things. I'm also a Western North Carolinian, and so I've watched Helene impact that area. And one of the first things people needed was, I got to charge my cell phone to tell my family I'm alive. So that's also, both having plugs that are live all throughout the building, but then also having some plugs outside the space, so that, there's a lot of Central Oregonians that have really nice camper vans, but, it would be nice to have somewhere they can pull up and charge a phone, call folks. So looking at both inside, a lot of, loads, lighting, HVAC plugs, but then also outside the building too.
So I guess the next question I have is, why Trinity Place? Why Heart of Oregon Corps Resilient Youth Campus? And do you have any agreements with these cities for emergency services in case one of that?
Yeah, so I can speak to our project. I really believe that our residents that we serve are the ones that need to be in the community and working and actively, some of them are going to be first responders. So many of them do not have the means and the resources to, go somewhere else or stay with family in another town in the event of, wildfire or winter storm. But then some of those folks who actually need to be there, need to be, in the community working, to mitigate those things. So that's, one of the main reasons why, we want to build these spaces out in the building. As far as formal agreements with emergency services, no, we don't have any in place at the moment. I think we do have a very close working relationship with the city of Sisters. They put money into the larger development effort, as well as have given unconditional land use to our project, and we've coordinated with them for our building. I think it's interesting, I will say I have spoken a lot with the county sheriff's office, the satellite office there, and have, reviewed our building plans with them from a safety planning perspective, so, yeah.
I'll quickly touch on Heart of Oregon Corps, and happy to follow up with Laura. She was not able to make it. But our perspective on that project is a couple of things. It's the new resilient youth campus planned for Redmond for Heart of Oregon Corps. This is uniquely located in an area of Redmond where there's sort of already other resilient infrastructure being planned. And so I think this is just a really smart project to provide additional support when an event happens for volunteer support, bringing in services. Laura is really open to sort of coordinating with local partners on that, as well as deploying potential crews, Heart of Oregon crews to support response and recovery events. To my knowledge, they don't have any formal contracts for that yet, but they are requesting letters of support from the city, as well as potentially Core 3 and others. So we do see it as an opportunity to sort of provide that overall resilience in the hub of Central Oregon in Redmond, as well as, supporting them and being able to operate in the event of an outage.
I'm sorry, what's the ask? I know it was stated in the beginning, but I missed it.
Yeah,
lost it somewhere.
Absolutely. So we're requesting that the board approve us, because this is a new grant that we have not yet applied for, approve COIC to be the lead applicant and fiscal administrator for the project.
Okay.
And then, so that's really our role. And then Heart of Oregon Corps and Northwest Housing Alternatives will be the project manager. So we won't be managing much of the construction, but we will be partnering very closely on that.
Okay.
Oregon Department of Energy is the grant, and it's just the grant application. So just a request to approve us to apply.
And then is the project the housing or the energy?
So on our project, it is actually the energy, the renewable energy, and then the battery storage, so solar and the battery storage. That's this grant application.
Okay.
So yeah, we have funding collected for our larger housing development.
Okay.
So that part of it's moving forward.
And it's the same for the Heart of Oregon Corps. They already have funding for their campus. This is just adding solar backup battery and some EV charging stations.
Okay. And so for the energy that's generated and that's stored, does it go exclusively to the development that we're talking about, or does any of it get resold onto the market?
So the solar, when it's, it will be grid tied solar for our project. So that will be net metered. So when we're generating above both the load of the building at any given time and what's needed to top off the batteries, that excess energy would go back onto the grid.
I'm going to tap Brian for this one to confirm for the Heart of Oregon Corps.
Yeah, same methodology, little bit different numbers for Heart of Oregon Corps, 88 solar panels and 2 backup batteries that are 120 kilowatts. So the system there is about targeting, again with bids, for about $275,000 grant ask, which includes the solar panels, the backup batteries, and EV chargers. And as Shelby pointed out, they're training youth from 16 to 24 out in the workforce. And so many of those jobs are in forestry, contracting and stuff that will be needed in an emergency. So the ask is both for their facility to be able to operate, but also to allow them to help others in the community. The 25-year payout on that system is about $320,000 in savings, and they'll be generating almost 50,000 kilowatts per year. And same system, if there's extra after their usage and the batteries are filled up, then it goes back to the grid. Otherwise, it stays on the battery or right through their usage.
And if the grid goes down for whatever emergency, that automatic shut off goes, straight to the batteries, you start using the batteries at that point. It's the same thing I want to do in my house, so I'd love to do this grant for my house. But I love it. It's the first time that we're getting this grant opportunity, correct? And COIC is just gonna be the recipient or the intermediate or the pass-through, whatever
So
it
I'm
is.
gonna touch on, I asked Shelby to touch on what our portion and part of this is.
Yeah.
Is there match funding? What's our responsibility and
Yeah.
how are we accountable, meaning you as a board?
Perfect.
Yes,
That's my
absolutely.
question's gonna be.
Okay.
Yep, so again, lead applicant and local government partner and the fiscal administrator, that will come in the budget with some funding to support that work. And then no other financial or other commitments. So we're really on the hook for reporting and sort of moving the work forward. And the rest comes from our partners.
Are there any matches required? Not necessarily of COIC, but any match for these grants?
Let me check on that. I mean, I can speak to our larger match on our project as a whole is, over 19 million to get the thing built. So, I think we can look at what portion of those funds we've already collected, would count as a match, if that's a requirement. But yeah, at least on our end, I can, depending on how we call it, I can show that in a lot of different ways.
I think just from an administrative standpoint, it would be important for COIC to have language in our agreement with both your organization as well as Heart of Oregon that stipulates and basically says you're on the hook for that match. Because if we're applying for these grants and we're the fiscal administrator and lead applicant, we're on the hook for it, but we want to be able to pass that on to your organizations. That's the ones performing the work and, receive the benefit of the grant.
Yes.
And we are working right now on an MOU with both organizations for the application that sets all of that up. So it basically, it puts the risk on our development folks and supports COIC in being able to provide that capacity.
So it does include language about if there's a map.
I don't think it includes match, so we will certainly make sure that's included, but.
That'd be something like for myself that I'd like to see in the packet so that we can have that and know as a board upfront, right? And as we evaluate the decisions, I think that's important.
And as a process improvement, when we change these templates, let's add match or, some of these pieces we can capture. There may just be none or, but that's a great.
Is COIC, are we retaining any grant funds with the overhead costs?
Yes, we are, And we're still looking at that. Typically it's around 15%, but when it's something with a sort of a lower threshold, like we're doing a lot more pass-through, or just that fiscal administration, we're gonna work together to see what's appropriate.
I will say that won't be reflective of Shelby's effort and Megan's earlier effort on just identifying this, working with us to get to this point. So they have been awesome so far.
I just have a weird random question, which, as you know, I love to do. The footprint of the solar panels that's going to be retained to the roof structure of the buildings.
On our project, yes, it will.
And you know about Heart of Oregon?
Yes, the 88 panels are on the roof, and then the battery is in its own kind of gated, screened area on grade.
Yeah, no, I was assuming that, but I just want to make sure that we weren't having like the whole back block covered with panels or anything.
Yeah, no, good question. Good question.
So how does this come to COIC? Is it a purpose of a government partner or, because you can't apply directly as a.
That's correct. So this CREP grant requires that the lead applicant be a government jurisdiction. So
Or tribal.
Yeah, or tribal entity.
Yeah, and this one was identified, as I said earlier, through our community resource development program, in working with sisters in that community on identifying potential grant opportunities to support affordable housing work.
Yeah, I was just wondering why they do it themselves, but that's.
Yes, that's.
Any other questions?
So just further, yeah, it's just so outside of being just kind of the accountability partner for you guys. We have some oversight on this as being a resource to you. Just for, I think our own purposes, this is a really unique program that's come before us, one that I am excited to see move forward. I think it would be great to have you guys come back and provide us updates. You don't like the opportunity to come in and take a look at how things are progressing.
Yeah,
So.
you don't,
We'll come to
extend
the
that
ribbon
invitation
cutting.
lightly, I'll talk your ear off.
That's awesome. I really think that this is a modeling opportunity for other things.
Yeah.
So,
So did we acknowledge how much the request, is it like a grant request for a certain amount for both of these projects?
The request is just for us to apply. The application doesn't open until Monday. And we are still working through the details, but I think Clayton mentioned theirs is coming in at around 500,000 and then some additional funding, obviously, for our administrative costs. And I believe Heart of Oregon course is coming in around somewhere around 300,000. And then again,
That's correct. Yes.
Yep, thanks, Brian.
Do I have a motion to move forward with this? Because we're about another page.
You want to read the motion here? I move to approve COIC to apply to the Oregon Department of Energy's Community Renewable Energy Program on behalf of Northwest Housing Alternatives and Heart of Oregon Core Projects, and to serve as lead applicant and fiscal sponsor if awarded.
Second. Any further discussion?
Abstain at all with my role on council for Sisters in a direct relationship with NHM.
Are you on the board or do you benefit in any way personally or financially?
Yeah, I was really.
Okay.
Enthusiasm doesn't disqualify.
Yes, I think it's always great to say that, thank you, but you are just fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very
Thanks, y'all.
exciting project. Okay, next we got the Newberry Country Strategic Action Plan, Megan, here, and then we have a couple folks online.
There she is. There she is.
Yeah.
Podcast. There it is. Yep. So there you go. There. I got the owl, I guess.
Oh, there it is. There's the plan.
Yes.
Put that cookie in.
Yeah, so we're just passing around the booklets. Feel free to take one to keep and also reference during the meeting, but yeah, I'll get started. So thank you all for having us here today. My name is Megan Tuck. I'm a program coordinator in the Community Economic Development Department. And I'm joined here by Jeff Wolfshager, City Manager and Board Chair of Newberry Regional Partnership, as well as Patty DeBone, the Community Coordinator for Newberry Regional Partnership. And so we are very excited to present to you all the Newberry Country Action Plan, 2025 to 2030, 5-year action plan. This is a product of, gosh, 1.5 year long effort that we took part of, maybe almost 2.5 years. And this project really started back in 2022. There were a group of local leaders who came together and were interested in starting an initiative to engage the community in a new and different way, specifically the South Deschutes County and North Klamath County community, which we lovingly call Newberry Country. And there, are any estimates between 15,000 to 20,000 people that live in this area, but very few people actually live within the city limits of La Pine and have that local governance. So how do you engage folks and bring them into a process when they live in unincorporated areas or rely on the city of La Pine for services, but like I said, might not live in city limits? And so the group landed on an idea of doing this community-led strategic action plan. We brought in consultants. I'll have Kathy and Jeff touch on kind of our process a little more later. But this is what we resulted with after lots of community engagement. Like I mentioned, we work with consultants Stephen Ames and Steve Maher. Stephen Ames is local to Central Oregon. He's worked on the Sisters Country Vision as well as Envision Bend. So he knows the region really well and was an amazing partner on this project. And then we also hosted a community summit with over 70 participants. down at the Sun River Shark, which was amazing to get feedback from folks. It was a great event. We did a poll of strategies as well, and resulted in this really beautiful booklet. Specifically, how COIC was involved, we got involved with this project from the beginning with our rural community building program. And for those of you who might not be familiar with this program, this is a program that's funded by the Ford Family Foundation specifically to support our work. It pays for our staff time. It has some contracting dollars to help us bring in consultants to assist with projects, as well as funding to bring down barriers for community engagement. So we can pay for food at meetings, childcare at meetings, renting a facility space, whatever that looks like. And so the goal of our program is to provide that critical capacity support in rural communities to bring the visions of community leaders to life. We mostly focus on working with what we would like to call non-traditional community leaders. So not typically, not always your city managers or your council, but just, you know, everyday folks who want to bring projects to life and make a difference in their community. And yeah, so a lot of our work has been mainly focused on providing technical assistance. So that can be a range of writing grants, supporting with meeting facilitation, doing that consultant contract management, and community engagement is a lot of what we supported with. And I just want to say I'm very proud of the work that we've done and the work that Newberry Regional Partnership has done, and the work that is going to be ahead of us. So with that, I'll kick it over to Jeff to touch on a few more points.
Thank you, Megan. That was a wonderful introduction, and thank you, board, for having us here tonight and welcoming us to discuss our strategic action plan booklet that we've recently published, and to talk a little bit about how we got here. This was really sort of an organic inception. It takes me back. I've been here almost 5 years as a city manager. Not that that's necessarily germane, but in conversations with Kathy and other local leaders and people of shall we say, participation in the South County community, a conversation started to arise right about 2020, 2021. We were right in the heart of COVID, and we were sort of in the throes of this time where people were looking for representation in governance, particularly given the circumstances of the pandemic. And judging where I came from, where there was clearly defined lines of one jurisdiction to the next, I found myself being faced with a lot of inquiries, frustrations, challenges from people not only outside of the city limits, but oftentimes across county borders as well. And it sparked this conversation between Kathy and myself and some other folks about what can we possibly do to address this in a non-conventional manner. You don't know what you don't know. We've since learned that there are other groups out there called rural community builders that are doing similar work. But we didn't have a roadmap at the time. This was just sort of born out of necessity. And, the political climate certainly didn't help. There were a lot of, I would say, impacted folks that were sort of widely dispersed, that were really looking for somewhere to grasp onto where they felt like they could not only get the representation, but also participation. As a side note, we've never excluded anybody from participating in city council meetings in La Pine, but it would usually end up in a conversation of, we're glad you're here, we're happy to hear you, but there's not much we can do to represent your interests outside of our jurisdictional constraints. So we started coming up with some goals as to what we wanted to accomplish with this process. And I'll just go through the list here briefly. We wanted to increase civic access and participation in the South County region, increase local ownership and accountability in local affairs and matters of governance, enhance community social cohesion, because there was certainly these very disparate pockets of people scattered about South Deschutes County and North Klamath County, including, I should mention, Westlake County. And we wanted a reduction of polarization, and I just mean political polarization, but just concepts that people had that, oh, those folks over there are different than me. We wanted to break down those barriers. So as Megan gave you a good introduction of, we went through some initial work. Let me just get to my list here, folks. I'm working off of 3 screens, so bear with me. And I didn't want to seem insincere because you're over here, but I wanted to look at you while I'm talking. In response to these needs and targets, we did this work, and Megan gave you a good introduction to the timeline. But as a result, we saw significant participation of the larger community throughout the strategic planning process, which in turn has resulted in, I think, an established and what I would call a reestablished sense of place in this region. Because I think it was here some time ago. It's fractured over time. Because I've spoken to a lot of the quote unquote old timers here in South County, and I hear the stories of how things used to be. And one of my questions was, well, where did it go? And so I think it's important to recognize that I think we've begun to reestablish that. And we've seen an increase in that civic participation and contribution that we were looking for throughout La Pine, Three Rivers, Sun River, North Klamath County, and Westlake County, despite the perception and demographical differences across these communities. I think the people, not just us, is the facilitators and leaders of this movement, but the participants have found that they have a lot more in common than they knew when we started this out. Just to give you some numbers, and Kathy will touch on the finer points of some of this with some of the elements she's going to talk about. But in 2023, we rolled out the survey and we had 1,162 legitimate responses. We had just over 2,000, but a lot of that was a bot response. And when the statistician broke it out, we had that 1162, which I think is a really good representation. Certainly a statistically significant response. 710 were from the zip code that encompasses La Pine proper, La Pine unincorporated, and North Klamath County. 391 were from the Sun River area, and then 60 from those other areas that I mentioned. So that was sort of the first milestone in 2023 where we kind of told ourselves, all right, we're onto something here. Then we rolled out some focus groups in 2023. There were 4 sessions. 2 were in La Pine, one was in Three Rivers, and one was in Sun River. And these touched on some of the elements of our plan in terms of the areas of focus that we were working on, predominantly in education, economic development, public safety, and public health. And then in 2023, we had 9 civic engagement sessions with varying degrees of success. I would say it wasn't for lack of participation, but you'll get the punchline in a minute. In October, we had public safety and wildfire focus, economic development, health and human services, and arts and culture. In November, we had arts and culture and environment and natural resources and education. And 6 of those sessions were in La Pine and 3 were in Sun River. In 2024, we had a series of workshops, which is sort of the next stage. We had a homeowners insurance workshop in May of 2024. We held a workshop following the Darlene 3 fire in 2024 with over 100 participants, and this is where the punchline is. We certainly had a lot of people show up. Were they happy? Not necessarily. Did we find resolution that evening? Not necessarily, but it got an uncomfortable subject onto the table and it got people talking. We then held 4 formalized actual physical land steward cleanups in areas around La Pine on federal land, 2 in the Jack Pine area south of town, and 2 to the east and what we call the Darlene area, with certainly enormous contributions from regional partners. And then we had a community action summit, which this was sort of the, I guess, precipice or the penultimate part of what you're looking at now. And Megan touched on this. We had over 75 people show up. And the real magic of this exercise was, and I hats off to Megan and Kathy and Julia, who used to be with COIC. They were really the designers of this, along with the Steves, as we called them, that Megan mentioned. We put people at tables in somewhat of a random format. And I know this is nothing new. Everybody's done some iteration of this, but we put people that didn't look like one another, that didn't come from the same zip code, that might have very marked differences in terms of their approach to these questions. And by the end of that afternoon, I mean, people were patting each other on the back. And I know this sounds very sort of cliche and cheesy, but it's true. There were commonalities being formed. And not only was that a measurable outcome, but we got a lot of great data to inform what you're looking at today. And now here we are in 2025. We've rolled out our strategic plan, the synopsis of which is in your hands today. And with that, I could speak to some of the outcomes, but I want to hand it off to Kathy because you've committed so much to this endeavor. And again, thank you for letting me speak this evening. I think you're muted, Kathy.
Oh, man. There you go.
Might be a good thing because I could go on. I know it's getting a little late, so I wrote down what I was going to say so that I don't take more of your time than needed. But my role with you tonight is to walk you through the structure of the strategic action plan, tell you about a few of our successes, which Jeff has also touched on, and also share with you about what's on the horizon for Newberry Country, for Newberry Regional Partnership. Does everyone have their book? I'd like to start.
Never book.
Tammy, okay. Good. So I want to talk to you about the structure of the booklet and how we present the strategies. The booklet is organized into 7 focus areas, starting on page 8. And it's largely based on a process we learned about through the Ford Institute Leadership Program called the Dimensions of Community Vitality. So this book is organized into the 7 areas, beginning with Resilient Newberry Country, Wildfire and Public Safety. Bob Townsend will love this one, Livable Newberry Country, which is growth planning and infrastructure. I want to point out that there is a piece in here that says improve public transportation in Newberry Country. Just wanted to point that out. We also have Sustainable Newberry Country, our plan for the environment and recreation. Next is Thriving Newberry Country, Health, Wellness, and Human Services. Prosperous Newberry Country, Jobs and Economic Development. Inspired Newberry Country, Education, Learning, and Youth Activities. And lastly, Vibrant Newberry Country, Arts, Culture, and Civic Life. Each of the focus areas contain a quote by a community member, a game changer strategy, as was identified by those who attended the Community Summit in November of 2024. You've heard Jeff and Megan mention that. And also additional top strategies identified by our year-long community outreach. Each of the 27 strategies identified in the booklet contain a list of potential lead partners. So now that we have this book finally published, which we're so excited about, we are moving into implementation and local leadership development. NRP cannot do this work alone. We rely heavily on volunteers and our partner organizations to carry these collective action projects forward. The Newberry Regional Partnership, Megan touched on this, views community champions as the essential foundation for the success of these action teams. The action teams are charged with implementation of this plan. The beauty of the community champions is that they help us bridge the gap and help to build trust. They're key in making this engagement genuine and effective, helping to build the trust needed for residents to participate in a meaningful way. The champions' local knowledge and existing relationships are critical for reaching people who might not otherwise be involved. They also help us drive local action and ownership. Community champions are proactive leaders who take ownership of local issues. The NRP's action teams, which address topics like wildfire risk and land stewardship, rely on champions to drive these efforts forward. Their leadership ensures that the action teams work as a community-led effort with lasting impact. They ensure community-led solutions. Community champions provide on-the-ground perspective that's essential for moving from planning to effective implementation. Their involvement helps us to avoid a one-size-fits-all solution and instead create strategies and action items that genuinely address the community's concerns. So Megan asked me to talk about some of our successes. So far, we have 7 action teams in different stages of formation. And the first one I'd like to tell you about is in regards to Sustainable Newberry Country. And it's around the where is it? Cleaning up trash and implement solution. Oh, no, that's not it. Clean up trash and garbage from South County forested areas. We are also going to be focusing on North Klamath County. But this group, they're called the Newberry Country Land Stewards. They're led by a community champion here in Lapine named Shannon Shahan. They are a powerful example of community-led action, embodying the very spirit of this partnership. The dedicated group is on the front lines working tirelessly to restore our public lands and improve safety for everyone. This fiscal year, their impact has been nothing short of remarkable. They've taken large-scale community action. They've spearheaded 3 to 4 large-scale cleanups. We have 4 on the schedule just for this year, and we've completed 2 with 2 more in the works. They've mobilized volunteers to tackle significant areas of concern. Jeff, you've been at every one of those, and so has Tony, and thank you for your participation. Of course, Tony didn't have any choice. These demonstrate their commitment to proactive hands-on stewardship. They've created strategic partnerships by supporting the inmate work crew with Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. 4 additional cleanups have been completed. The stewards have been able to amplify their impact and address more sites than they could have on their own. I have a list of those who are involved. The list is long, but I'm going to skip that in the interest of time. They've come up with innovative solutions. Their collaboration with Republic Services to place dumpsters and encampments is a testament to their innovative and compassionate approach. Their work has produced staggering results. Over the past year, the team has removed approximately 20 abandoned RVs and vehicles in partnership with BLM and the MAC funding that we worked with COIC to access. So thank you for that. Approximately 500 cubic yards of trash has been removed, not including shopping carts, appliances, tires, and propane tanks. This has had a direct and positive impact on fire safety, environmental health, and the overall quality of our public lands. The next action team I'd like to tell you about is the Defensible Space Action Team. The group is led by community champion Monty Damerall. He lives in Three Rivers, and in partnership with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, Lapine Fire District, Walker Range, COIC, Central Oregon Fire Prevention Co-op, Project Wildfire, Upper Deschutes River Communities, Team Rubicon, and other national, state, and local agencies. In April of 2025, we presented, in partnership with these groups, the Wildfire Preparedness Fair in Lapine, drawing over 200 attendees. Another success was that we talked our Lapine Fire Chief Holsey into cooking that lunch of over 200 hamburgers. Very well received. In July of 2025, members of the Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition held their monthly meeting in Lapine, and they'll be doing that around Deschutes County around Deschutes County. The meeting provided invaluable insights into wildfire preparedness with a strong emphasis on empowering communities through National Firewise program, and that event drew 58 attendees. We are also planning a defensible space assessment in October of 2025 to empower local residents in assisting their neighbors to assess their own properties. The very first action team we started, moving on, is the Public Safety Action Team. That started immediately following the Darlene 3 Seeking Solution.
Kathy, I just got to interrupt for a second. We're really kind of crunching up on time here. And we do, I think, we've talked quickly about how to adjust our agenda a little bit. We do have one other thing we have to talk about with the board tonight for at least 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm gonna, maybe, is there anything else you need to share with us to wrap up? Just, I want to honor people's time. We probably are going to have to go over a little bit.
Sure. Aren't you glad I wrote this down? It could be worse. Just to let you know what's on the horizon, we've spent a lot of time focusing outward. We're going to start taking time to focus inward and work on our organizational development and financial sustainability. We are planning a second annual summit in November to bring our action teams together, and we will provide local capacity building training. So that's what we're working on right now, along with supporting these action teams to be successful. Anything you want to add, Jeff?
No, I again want to thank the board for their time and for taking attention to what we provided you with tonight. There's been an enormous amount of work, immeasurable hours from hundreds of people that have gone to this. So thank you so much.
It's a really super exciting project, and it's great to see, you know, the way you brought the community together to think about the future and how to get there. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Tammy and I just chatted briefly. I think what we're going to do is ask her to follow up on the community and economic development housing team update and the official publicly required training via email, and just jump right into a brief discussion of the fiscal and audit. It's probably audits in particular.
Yeah.
It's not primarily.
Yeah, it's gonna be clear.
Yeah. Dive right back in. Sure.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm back. And I wanted to take a quick second to thank Tammy and my team for covering for me while I was out. It was a really bad time for me to be out, like the worst time ever for my job and budget and all of that. So thank you to the board and to Tammy.
Your leadership ahead of time made it possible, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So presented in the packet were the March through May financial statements for 2025. We're currently working on year-end billing and closing 6/30/25. We'll present the 6/30 year-end financial statements to the board in November of 2025. So that's when you can expect to see those. We'll have all of our final billings and referrals and everything done. Now here's the audits. So 6/30/23, that audit is in the final stages and the financial statements are being completed. However, we didn't have time for your guys' review and then posting it to the posting it for this board meeting in time. So normally, given the circumstance, we would bring the audit to the board at our September meeting. But we've checked with our auditors, and if the board wishes to do so, he can be available for a special meeting of the board. If you wish to hold a special meeting, we have to, or are required to, give a 7-day public notice, making the earliest we could meet the week of August 18th. Our auditor is happy to make himself available anytime after 5 for that entire week. So the 18th through the 22nd. And then for 6/30/24 audit, we expect to have that one done by November of 2025 and ready for board approval by December of 2025. And then the 6/30/25 audit should be ready for the board approval by March of 2026. And then just so you are aware, the fiscal department's working really hard on these since I'm back, and I came back earlier in the month of July. This is pretty much all I'm working on right now. This and our training review. We have an FTA review that is coming up at the end of this month. So those are my big projects that are pretty much taking all of my time. But we are making really good progress, and our auditing firm is set aside projects that they normally would be taking right now. They set aside time for us to really get caught up, so they understand that it's really important for us as an agency to get back on track. Yeah, so, and then also with our trend review coming up, we know we have some policy updates that are gonna need to happen. We have some policies that they just are old and need to be updated. So expect to see quite a few policy updates come for the September board meeting. Woo! Yeah. Super fun. You know, Title VI, EEO, DDE, that kind of stuff. And The FTA is aware of it. We did have an ODOT review last fall, had a few findings related to some of those policies. So we're really just trying to make sure that we get those updated and get those findings closed out and work with the FTA. So that hopefully they're not findings in our report.
So the question to the board is, do you want to, knowing the urgency and the cadence of the audits that we have backed up, would you like to have a short virtual meeting that we would need a quorum? We would not, of course, try to get everyone in person. It would be for simply that one item between the week of the 18th. Or would you prefer that we go ahead and bring it to the September meeting, which our auditor can also join us at? So it's really at the, first of all, if we would have a quorum, if we wouldn't have a quorum, it really makes sense for us to.
So it's asking us to meet 2 weeks earlier. The currently scheduled meeting would be on September 4th. So this would just get it to us 2 weeks earlier.
I will be in the woods that week, but I'm generally no fun at audits anyway. So, I will try to attend, but I don't know that I'll have signal reception. God willing, I won't.
Who could actually make a meeting that week? Would we even have a quorum? Who would be able to do something in the evening on the 18th, 19th, 20th, or 21st, I guess? The Monday, Thursday, that week.
I'm out the Thursday, Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm here.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's special. Do you need a special meeting? I will make myself available if you guys feel the need as staff. I don't feel the need as a board member to get it a couple weeks early. Board member, I'm fine waiting until September, but if you as staff see a benefit or a need, especially given the next audits that you're working on, if closing this one out will help you with that and help reduce your stress and your workload and your team's workload from all on board, otherwise I'd say wait.
It necessarily won't, because once we get this done and the financial statements are finished and prepped and all reviewed and the auditors doing their final updating of their letters, I'm done with it and I'm moving on. And as soon as I have it in that draft form, I send it all out to you guys to review anyways. It's more of, and the FTA will accept that, ODOT will accept that, there's no problems there. It's more of the media attention we've gotten recently. We're behind. And so we just need to get caught up. Being caught up will help me feel way better.
Will you sleep better at night?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, I support what Gabriel says. I don't know if there's a real need for us to meet the week of the 18th. Let's hold on until September. I also want to applaud Tammy for getting out in front of this, being available to the media, showing the transparency, being just open and honest and upfront. Putting a good face on COIC, and then the communication out to the board in advance of what we're going to read and being available if we had any questions. So thank you for that. And Michelle, wonderful to have you back. But I would say we could hang till September.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to, more likely to have a higher level of attendance at the September meeting anyway, that would have been informed. Thinking, or as much of it, many of this as possible. Yeah.
Also, it's more transparent if it's at a regular meeting than a special meeting. So
Yeah.
in that perspective as well, it's less of a happening. It's just.
And any redundancy.
When was the 2023 audit due?
It's due to the state by December of 2023. So we've been behind. We originally got behind because our auditor, who was one-man band, passed away, and it took us a while to find out. The only way we did find out is we found his obituary.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for that. And then, so then the 2024 audit was due the end of 24.
Yeah.
And the end of 25.
Is when the 6/30/25 audit is due, correct?
Yeah. So again, I'm new here and I've gotten a lot of minutes tonight, so I appreciate everybody tolerating my questions. I hear what everybody's saying, and I would advocate for a special board session to acknowledge the priority that this is for us as a board to close out the 2023 audit and move on as quickly as it is available. If we can't do it with 9 board members to form a quorum, then it's just not possible. So it's not worth running up a hill if we can't get to the top of it. But I think Michelle and Tammy, you've allocated the resources to get it done, and as a board, I would advocate to support that, acknowledge it, and enter September, not talking about 2023. So I don't know if I need to make a motion to do it, but I will volunteer to make myself available the week of the 18th to honor the work that was done and get past the 2.5-year delay that we're already in.
I think it's important to also note, and I put it in the memo too, we have filed for extensions, so we've done the things that are appropriate, and yeah, but the uneasiness is, and the transparency is, we are delinquent. And that's never a good look. And so I very much appreciate the comments of being transparent about that. We are going to have times that it is not where we want to be. And if we're hiding that ball, then I don't want you to lose confidence in us. And so sometimes we're going to share things that, you know, you're just going to say, oh boy, you know, what's happening. So thank you. I saw some people checking their calendars. It sounds like we have a few. Do we know how many folks we might have? And here's another idea. We get it across the finish line and we ask Raymond to come in September as well.
Well, it needs to be presented by Raymond anyway, so we could ask him to come and present twice.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would be something that I know he would be willing to do as well. He doesn't come in person. He's in Klamath Falls, so he actually comes remote, so.
I could be here on the 18th and 19th, not on the 20th, there's a council meeting that night. And the 21st.
I'm good Monday and Tuesday, I don't.
Okay.
Monday, Tuesday, everything else.
Okay, that's free.
Monday, Tuesday,
4, 5, okay.
I could do Monday, Tuesday.
Okay, 6, I'm looking at Monday.
We have 13 board members, I think.
And we have a
maybe
total of
14 with
16.
Susan, or
So
16 total,
appointed.
so we need 9
We need 9.
for a quorum.
And they have to be a mix.
Yep,
What
it has
is
to
it?
be 2/3 elected and 1/3 appointed.
Okay.
So maybe a doodle poll of some kind,
Okay,
just so you can
let's do
really
that.
see a tally.
Okay,
And
we'll
what
do
years
that.
seem
Okay.
possible.
So we'll look at the 19th and 18th and 19th. And then, and I just want to say, we are okay if it gets to September.
Yeah.
It really is
Yeah.
because at the,
Well, that's what I read in your memo about the extension.
Yep.
And being upfront.
Yep.
So, that's why I want to put that motion forward.
Very
for
good.
September.
Yeah, I guess maybe I don't understand the difference between a approved extension and a delinquent status. And so I'm thinking about business and personal tax returns and so on and so forth. So if there's an extension that's filed, how's it delinquent?
well, I'm saying that we haven't fulfilled the December 31st timeline for 23, 24, and we will likely miss 25.
Yeah.
So I'm using that language myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a technical sense.
Yeah, just,
Spiritually.
thank you, spiritually.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever
You've
been
been called a
spiritually
delinquent
delinquent,
before.
but
Yeah.
I'm using it myself. We have filed for extensions, and so we're, in that way, we're okay, but we are not okay because we should, you need to trust us that we're gonna be able to.
We're okay
But they honored the-
legally,
they honored
COIC is in the right area. They've done the correct steps, and I'm speaking this from my own personal life. Finance director in Jefferson County, so they've done everything legally. They're totally fine as far as the law goes, but more best practice. You know, they're outside of that best practice. Best practice is you get it done by December, because then January you're starting a budget process and you're planning for the next year, right? Which is really tough to do, and I'm speaking from my own experience, because when I took over my post, audit ended up going long. I didn't complete an audit until April, and so I have gone through that budget process without having a completed audit, and it just makes it more difficult, less transparent. So they're outside of best practice, but they're not outside of the realm of the legal guidelines and restrictions that they've got. That's why, for me personally, September, it doesn't bother me.
So we can move forward.
We'll do
See
it,
if we
we'll
can
see
actually
what we
meet
get.
our
If
quorum
we
requirement.
get enough folks, we will pull you together. We will have a short, well, it won't be too short because, Raymond will do an overview of the audit. But most important, just know that this is an urgent piece for us, and we are working on it, and it is properly resourced to the degree that we can, and it'll move as fast as we can light the fire
on our auditor.
I'm lighting fire.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, I think with that, we're adjourned.
Hey.
All right.